Okay, greetings and welcome to Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. Today's date is the 5th of October 2025. I'm Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu in the studio. I'm hoping Sister Oleander might be able to join us later on, but we're having a few gremlins. Literally just got back, and yes, I am in my Star Trek top. Don't ask. It's a Sunday, and I wanted to do something different from the Colombo, and I didn't have a chance to change. Anyway, please let me know that you can see us okay, that you can hear us okay. I don't know what else to say, really. It's a jam-packed program, as ever. It's the second edition since our last broadcast a couple of weeks ago. It seems to go really, really fast. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks already. But as ever, you're welcome to interact on with us through Facebook, through YouTube, or Twitter, whichever way you're listening. If Sister Oleander joins, and hopefully she will do the chat. If not, I'll try my best to sort this out. But as you can see, I'm a bit slow with all that. But that's cool. And as usual, don't forget to do all the stuff, subscribe, like, share, all those kind of things. Let people know it's useful if you think it's useful. But because of our heavy program, I'm going to get started. And as usual, we begin with libations, and that's to those that have recently passed or any notable anniversaries. So let's hoping that this works without any hiccups. And yeah, it's quite timely that we're back because today is the 40th anniversary of the killing of Mrs. Cynthia Jarrett in Tottenham. Now, those of you who may remember, she passed away from heart failure after 4 men burst into her home on the 5th of October 1985, claiming that they were looking for stolen property, and they found none. Got to be clear about that, right? They found nothing. The following day, the family met with the police to try and discuss her death. They demanded an inquiry. And at that time, they had the support of Britain's first African Heritage Council leader. Well, I should say in West area, Tottenham, Haringey. That's about it. That was in Haringey. And he issued a statement condemning the police's action. He was quite forthright with it. I think the media didn't like him because he was very much the people's champion. And the police responded badly. There was an uprising. And you've got to remember that now, this is 1985. So the Tottenham uprisings came literally a week after the uprisings that had just occurred in Brixton. And that was following the police shooting of our elder Mrs. Cherry Gross. The implications of this incident, which took the life of our ancestor now, Mrs. Cynthia Jarrett, reverberate with us to this very day. In fact, even at that particular time, there were many people who felt that the strife was so bad, it could lead to the army being called out onto the streets. You might think that this is new if you've been watching American politics and listening to the Orange One talking to the US military, saying that they're going to turn the army onto civilians. Well, that happened here 40 years ago, that this tension was so high that the population, and I say the population, I'm talking about minority ethnics, specifically African people, were living under that fear. It's quite disgusting that we don't hear much about this anniversary. It's the 40th anniversary, and I don't know if anyone anywhere on any media channel that I have been watching and monitoring has discussed this. But we remember. The next we remember, one that you may have heard a little bit more about, is that of our revolutionary ancestor, Assata Shakur. Now, she was an activist with one of my favorite liberation movements, which is the Black Panthers, and she later joined the Black Liberation Army. She joined the ancestors while in Havana, Cuba, aged 78. She'd been exiled there after being added to the FBI's most wanted terrorist list for years. They placed a $1 million bounty on her head. For many of us who are a bit confused about the situation with Obama, he's one of the ones who also refreshed this hunt and bounty on her head. She was serving a life sentence following a murder conviction in a shootout that she has continuously claimed that she was innocent of. So she joined the ancestors. There's one quote I want to just leave you with, which, I mean, she has, her legacy and her, how she's inspired so many of us is boundless. But one quote that I particularly love of hers as an education, she says that no one is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. Nobody is going to teach you your true heroes or your true history. So to understand that, to know your true heroes, if you need that knowledge, I just mangled it up. Nobody's going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes, if they know that knowledge will help set you free. I sometimes try to recite these things from my head, but it's an amazing quote. It kind of has echoes of Carter G. Woodson and John Henry Clark, and of course Malika Shabazz or Malcolm X. We need to know our own history. We need to teach ourselves our own history. We need to know who are those in our history that serve our purpose, that are our heroes, that are our heroines. And our sister, Assata Shakur, was certainly one of them. We remember. Yes, so just as a heads up, what am I going to say? Yes, you are watching the Pan-African Community News Network. We still have a few gremlins. I can see Sister Oleander's trying to get connected so she can deal with some of the chats. But if you are hearing us, if you can see us okay, a quick message would be appreciated. And I'll try and kind of get that working. But I'm going to keep going on. The other thing I said about that quote from our ancestor, that no one's going to teach you your true heroes. One of the things I want us to remember, for those of you who are young enough who don't know this, was that she was granted asylum by the former president Fidel Castro. So you often hear things about her being Tupac Shakur's godmother, which is true, but also you won't hear so much about how Cuba, and in particular Fidel Castro, were supportive of African liberation movements at that time, because of course they're painted as the enemy. So this is why education is so important. Okay, the next passing and the next slide is to an amazing brother, elder, now ancestor, obviously, Courtney Griffith. He was called to the bar in 1980. He took what they call silk in 1998, and he was joint head of the Garden Court between 1999 and 2012, where he worked for some 30 years. Now, our brother Courtney acted in some of the most highest profile, complex criminal cases of our time. Some of you will remember his involvement in the Damilola Taylor case, the Charles Taylor case, the Broadwater Farm estate uprising, which I just referred to with our elder. He was revered for his formidable advocacy and devastating cross-examination. He wasn't just a highly respected international advocate around the UK, but all around the world. In fact, at Garden Court, where he worked, he is fondly remembered for paving the way for African lawyers. He was a legend, and I don't use that word lightly. He was a legend. He was an icon. He inspired so many, and even though the Chamber's motto, the Garden Court motto, was "Do right, fear no one," he embodied that. I was very fortunate to have met him a few times at the front of another stalwart legend in our community, the KC Matthew Ryder, and he was charming. His intelligence was through the roof, as you probably imagine, but he inspired you. I'm someone that when injustice faces me and it keeps coming and it keeps coming, then I get a bit hot. Courtney, he was just cool under pressure. and we need that. There's a quote he has: "Every person who faces prosecution is entitled to the very best defense available. Without that, we would not have the highest standards of justice that we do." And this was one of the founding principles of Garden Court Chambers, and it remains at the heart of what I and my colleagues do every day of our lives. And he said that in 2011. And it just reminds me of some of those amazing, absolutely amazing legal brains we had that we rarely hear about. I spoke about Matthew Ryder, KC, but also Gary Green, KC. I mean, these are people who are, Karen Cargill, these are lawyers, people in the top of their game who we don't hear about, but they are diligently behind the scenes protecting us from the abuse of law and making sure we have a defense when we need it at the most vulnerable times in our lives. So I chose to use that image of Courtney because, it's him, just chilled, laid back, but always professional, always on point. We remember. The last libation for today is that of a young teenager, Marcus Ficana. Now, if you're looking at his face and thinking, I've seen that face, I'm sure I've just seen that face. Yeah, you did. He was a young boy who was in Dubai and imprisoned for having sexual relationship with a 17-year-old. Now, he was 18 at the time. There was, 1 year difference between them. It was consensual. There was nothing else going on. But their laws were very strict, and you saw the case, and he was eventually pardoned. So he's come back to the UK, and we've just found out, apologies for the date on the slide, it says 2024, it's 2025. We just found out yesterday, actually, that he passed away following a car crash. That's like 3 months after he was released. I can't imagine the pain that his family are going through. I just can't imagine the trauma that they must be dealing with right now. Marcus wasn't driving, he was a passenger in the vehicle. He was taken to hospital, but his injuries were so serious they couldn't save him. Now, I've heard a statement from the police, the Metropolitan Police have come out, and officers have said that they attempted to stop a car that he was in, but after a 60-second chase, they lost sight of the vehicle, and it was later found crashed into a truck. That's all we have on the case, but it's a tragic loss. If you think that he was 19 and caught it, Courtney before was what I think 69. It's he hasn't even lived. He just hasn't had a chance to even. We remember. Okay, you are. Let me see if I can move to the next slide. You are watching Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. If you're watching live, of course, you are welcome to interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, find this podcast useful. The next section is going to look at domestic news that's affecting our community. I can see that there's some comments in. I could try and take a quick break to see if I can get Sister Oleander on, but we're going to have no music to play in the background. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something crazy. Because it would be a great help if I can get her on board for us. I'm going to try and come back in 30 seconds. So please forgive me. I'm going to play a 30-second countdown, and I'll either be back with my wife or I'll just continue and fumble through. So please bear with me. Wow. Who says that live television isn't exciting? Okay. Can you hear me? Yes, I can see it. Right, let me go through the quotes. Sister Oleander is still trying to join us. Technical issues are something. Okay, so let's go through some of the comments. Grand Rising, my wonderful brother, Dr. Toyin, looking well. Great to see you on the big screen. Anticipating your current African news updates. I'll give thanks, Sister Natalie. It's good to know that you can hear us and see us okay. Where are we? Okay, warrior sister. Must be talking about Sister Ashaka. Yes, definitely. May the ancestors welcome her into power. Her legacy lives on. Yes, it certainly does. And I'll be taking her into my lectures and into the teachings I have. And the inspiration she has given us is amazing, and what we can learn from what she's done. Greetings, Sister Shell. Long time welcome. Yes, good to see you, and thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy the show. Please stay in touch and feel free to comment as well. Greetings, Sister Pamela. I can see and hear you clearly. Thank you. It's good to have you with us. Yeah, it's wonderful. And I can see Sister Oleander can chat. That's fantastic. So she can send chats, but we're still working to get her back on screen. So she's going to be trying. Hopefully she'll join us before the program finishes. And I think the last comment I can see. Oh wow. I was just reading about his ordeal in Dubai. Rest in peace, Marcus. And of course, this is to the young prince who recently joined the ancestors. I mean, it's just tragedy. Can you imagine 3 months out after you're released that you are, in a car crash? And I don't know how the family are going to coping with that. The moment of feeling elevation that he's home, and then now they've got to process this. But anyway, like I said, you are listening or watching Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. I'm going to continue on. We're going to now look at general and domestic news affecting our community. And let's hope that moves. Yes. Okay. The first story. I haven't had a chance to watch this program yet, and this is a Panorama documentary that was released this week. And we've been here before. Some of you remember the Secret Policeman documentary that came out. Well, this is a similar one where you have an investigator or reporters gone undercover into the police. And, even after all the reports and, all the comments that are being made by the Met that they're going to transform the service, we now have footage of several Metropolitan Police officers calling for immigrants to be shot, kind of like getting off on the use of force. I saw one particular clip where an officer explained how he damaged people's hands and tendons on purpose when applying handcuffs, causing the most pain, deliberately. They were dismissive of rape claims. So we have this toxic mixture of racism and misogyny still within Metropolitan Police Force. And not only is that still going on, we also have it happening in Charing Cross Police Station. I'm very familiar with that particular station because that's where I almost became a statistic. If the community hadn't come to save me, I would have been a potential death in custody. Now, this evidence that the BBC has put together, and we have to commend the BBC, who haven't actually been doing such a good job recently, but this particular piece of work is a good job. This challenges what the Metropolitan Police have been saying about tackling its toxic behaviours. Because we can now see that all that's happened is that the racism, misogyny, and homophobia, this report doesn't talk about homophobia, but these approaches have just been driven underground, have not gone anywhere. And the reason why the headline for this image is unmasked is because there's a quote that I wanted to pick out, which is quite telling. One of the officers, when filmed, obviously covertly, one of the things he said was that someone new joins and boom, mask on, and then you've got to figure them out. And this really, for me, is indicative of the problem, right? So they're aware of their racism, but they're aware that when new people come in, that they might not share those same values, and so they hide their attitudes until they're comfortable with them. And this is how the culture continues to live. And it means, for me, that this problem is being enabled from above. It's not just the rank and file. This is coming from supervisors, from the more senior officers as well, because they're not stamping it out. Sorry, let me just take a drink of water. So yeah, this is an important documentary. You can find like 2 5-minute clips on the internet, on the BBC News website, but I'm hoping to see the whole documentary. Not something I particularly want to look forward to watching, and it's not going to probably tell me anything that we don't already know and haven't experienced. The other side of this story, however, is that there's been a report in The Guardian, and they've seen this new drafting of new policies that says that any police association, and they're really specifically talking about the National Black Police Association, because they're the most progressive, the ones who talk about problems with stop and search policy, the use of force. They're the ones who are the most, powerful on this. But anyone who makes a public statements will be banned. They won't be allowed to. And they've deliberately targeted the NBPA because of this history of what they've been doing. So now the NBPA has pushed back against this, saying that look, that this is out of order. We need to have the ability for police officers from minoritized communities to speak, with a level of freedom. They're not trying to damage the reputation of the police. What they're trying to say is like, look, if we don't address this culture publicly, it will keep festering. It won't go anywhere. And we've seen that to be the case. Now it's got so bad that some officers are saying that there should be a boycott, that no one from minority community should be joining the police. I'm sympathetic to that call, even though you always hear that what's that maxim, you have to be in it to change it. But that's where people are right now. I'm going to move on because we've got a lot to talk about as well. So this is from one case where we're having people who have been silenced from talking inside the police, and we're having racism going underground so that new recruits don't realize how bad things are. Here's the other side of the story. We have our young queen, the Tottenham forward, Jess Naz, and she said she's done with being quiet. She's just done. Now, she's been receiving like racist abuse on social media, continuously. And I think when you're in the game and you're trying to stay positive, you don't want that to kind of like define you. You don't want that to pull you off your game. But let's put this into context. She's 24 years of age. 24 years of age, and she's been targeted with the vilest abuse on Instagram and all these other channels, especially after a penalty shootout victory over Aston Villa, I think it is, in the world, or in the Women's Football League Cup. Now, she's gone out and written, I was going to wait till after the game to speak because I'm done being quiet. I was subjected to racial abuse in my DMs. And I support her. I think, it's time. The problem is that when our queen decides to talk up, again, she'll be even more targeted. The last program a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about our now ancestor, Human Owsley, who founded or co-founded Kick It Out, the Kick It Out of Racism, Kick It Out, or Kick Racism Out of Football organization. But clearly there's still a long way to go. And I say this because in the run up to kind of like, looking and researching into this story, we could find out that there'd been abuse in the men's Premier League in the match between Liverpool and Bournemouth. In fact, it was so bad that the whole game was stopped briefly in the first half. There was also more abuse by Mathis Tell, who was subjected to racist abuse. He's a Tottenham forward on social media. And the England defender, Jess Carter, was also a target of racist abuse during Euro 2025. And so this is an ongoing issue. We now know that, of course, that the England team has decided to stop taking the knee. And I don't even remember that movement that was started by Colin Kaepernick in America when Black Lives Matter was kind of like in people's consciousness, where sportsters would take the knee to say that we are against racism. It's an anti-racism stance. But what's happening now is that the England team are not doing it anymore. I think want to get rid of people like Gary Lineker, people who really forthright on this. All this stuff starts to go back. But the rationale for this, and the manager Serena Wigman is saying that the impact of the anti-racism gesture just wasn't good enough. Now that's true. The gesture by itself wasn't good enough, but I would rather there would be something so symbolic and punitive action than nothing. So let's see how they support our sister, because she's 25-year-old, and when she says I'm done being quiet, it's not right that it's all on her. Okay, next story. And this one you can't really make up. I don't know if we spoke last week about, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, about Stephen Yaxley. That's the real name of the clown, Tommy Robinson, at the United Kingdom rally, where 150,000 far right men and women with their underage children, and I say underage children because these are children who don't even know and understand the implications of what their parents were doing in many cases, gathered on this kind of like this anti-immigrant racist march into the heart of London. Well, one of the things he's been doing is comparing the struggle, and they call it a struggle, of fighting against people from minority backgrounds, people who have migrated to escape certain death, people who have migrated to have a better quality of life. He's compared his so-called struggle of this mob with the anti-apartheid movement. And what he did at that rally, and I didn't know this, was that he played the song Something Inside So Strong. And he was kind of using it as an anthem for their movement. Now, this is completely ridiculous. And thankfully, the British singer, Labi Siffredi, who you're probably aware of, and he's in the image on the screen, he has said, no, you can't be using my tune for that. This is, and we've seen this happen before. I think the Orange One has taken the YMCA theme tune, hasn't it? And someone took the boss, was in the Bruce Springsteen stuff. And sometimes the artist push back and say, don't use my song to kind of like sugarcoat your toxicity. So that's what's happened in this particular case. And he's told to stop it. And the reason why, if you see my face screwing up a little bit, is because that particular song was written after a documentary about apartheid in South Africa was shown. So it was inspired by this documentary, which is really addressing an issue of a European soldier who was filmed shooting at an African man. And so it's a complete opposite meaning. I mean, you couldn't get further from the truth. This is an anti-racist anthem being misappropriated by a far-right, toxic racist and his fan and his mob, his gang, for political aims. So thought I'd share that with you. This is what's going on in the world today. No, I see Sister Oleander still isn't with us. Let me keep moving on. Okay. Talking about art, this is an important campaign. We spoke about this a year ago, and this is the Art Not Evidence campaign. And it's a new movement by a combination of lawyers, academics, artists, and people convicted in criminal trials where rap and drill lyrics have been used as part of the prosecution evidence. Now, this is something that is increasingly raising concerns. And like I said, we spoke about this a year ago, that stereotyping is playing a serious part in these prosecutions. Now, those of you who know me know that I don't particularly like the lyrics that are violent or that demean us, using the N-word and misogyny inside them. But I in no way endorse the idea that what somebody puts inside their song constitutes evidence to put someone behind bars. This is absolutely insane. The level of violence that's in other genres of music, and I don't see any of them being targeted. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Mary Whitehouse campaigning about, kind of like cartoons corrupting the morals of the British children. But this is outrageous because we are seeing young people going to jail based on some of their performances in some of this material. Now, I'm not pretending for one moment that there isn't sometimes a link, that some of the artists, and some is the key word, who are involved in some of these genres are also engaged in criminality. But it doesn't mean that their output constitutes evidence, and we should allow this to become normal. So the campaigners want to see expert witnesses on this form of music in criminal prosecutions who are independent as opposed to police officers who are part of the prosecution case. Because that's often what happens. The so-called experts are police officers saying that, yeah, they said, you know what I mean, the lyrics are going to, you know, they're going to murk someone. So therefore, that's evidence that they're going to kill them. I mean, that's absolutely mad, right? I mean, I could bring out a whole lot of Western tunes or heavy metal tunes, or I mean, it's absolutely insane. So this campaign, you're looking at Dr. Abeno Orsu Bempar, who's an associate professor of law at London School of Economics and the leading authority in this area. He shared some research detail with the Guardian newspaper, looking at the Court of Appeals cases involving rap and dual music used in prosecution, and between 2005 and 2025, and overall, he's found that the threshold, the numbers are increasing every single year. So yeah, art, not evidence. Talking about art, not evidence, and we're in a very strange twilight zone. We have this story about a school, Weymouth Secondary School to be precise, that has removed the book, The Hate You Give, after complaints from some parents that said it's divisive. And whenever you hear the word divisive, that normally means it's a code word for saying that it talks about racism. It addresses it, it challenges it. So I decided, and those of you who know that I don't do censorship, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help myself. I decided not to show you the face of the parent because his name's in the media. You can find it. I'm not going to repeat it. He's leading this campaign and he's running around making an ass of himself, saying that he's really upset that that his children came home and they were triggered after reading one of the books about racism and class. And he's listed a whole lot of books, not just The Hate You Give, but books that are being read by year 10 children, year 9 and year 8. And this is, it's ridiculous. In fact, what I will do is name some of those books. Let's do the opposite of censorship. So he's upset with The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. He's upset with Pigeon English by Stephen Kelman. And he's upset with The King of Nothing by Nathaniel Lesueur. And these are highly acclaimed books. Some of them are like bestsellers, and they deal specifically with social justice issues, certain concerns to do with discrimination, with racism. They're actually all on the government's approved list for reading. So the fact that the school has kowtowed to the bullying from this parent is something we have to keep an eye out for, because this is coming really much from the States, and the backlash. There's a lot of copycats in the UK who see what's happening in America, and it's emboldening them. Same thing across Europe. And so this is coming back from the nonsense that we saw emerge after the assassination of the Charlie Kirk guy. So yeah, it's here in the UK now. We'll probably start seeing people burning books, and I shouldn't even put those words out there, because I am old enough to remember Centerprise Bookshop. The Centerprise Bookshop was firebombed, wasn't it? Right. So we have a history. I've just forgotten an anniversary. We have an anniversary for Elder Eric Huntley. It's not on the slides. I think I don't want to get it wrong. He might be something like 98. I think it was a few days ago. And the reason why he came to mind as I was speaking is because they used to have a bookshop in their front room, and they were also attacked. People would throw things through their windows and smash them. So it starts with this, right? Banning books for children, sometimes written by children. And it leads to the burning of shops which are promoting education, which can empower African people. Let me move on. Okay, so talking about those are authors who are doing things that help address social injustice. This is a scholar, an academic, who does the opposite. We spoke about this, I think it was a year ago or two? I think it might have been 2 years ago. No, it was a year ago. This is Nathan Confas. I don't even remember, he made some really controversial and straight out racist comments. I've got some notes here. What was it? He argued, where was it? That under a true meritocracy, that people of African heritage would disappear almost completely from all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment, and that the number of professors of African heritage at Harvard would approach zero. So his argument was that there's a direct link between academic ability and race. It's very much like Watson with the bell curve, and he was just re-bringing this up. He goes on for more. He says other things. He talks about, it's important to preserve racial distinctions in society, stating that there must be some barriers set up between so-called races in order for each one to express its own unique genius. So he's saying, obviously, miscegenation. He's saying that kind of like we have to preserve whiteness, essentially white purity in his head. Now there was complaints that were made. I think he was suspended from his job, but what we do know is that an investigation was launched into his comments, and that was in 2024. And the results have come through, and the University of Cambridge have claimed that actually, despite 58 different complaints, the blog that he wrote did not amount to discrimination or harassment. Their argument is that, well, even though it's offensive, it's kind of all free speech. And I remember talking about this one because I'm caught right in the middle, right? I'm an academic. I believe in being able to be robust with ideas. And I stand for that defense, even when I don't agree with people, and their views and what they're saying. I do believe people have the right to have their point of view. But this is explicit racism, and this is explicit white supremacy. And I don't have a problem with him having this view. I have a problem with him sharing this view in a space where students are coming in and kind of like presenting it as it is established knowledge, established facts. Again, I don't believe in censorship. I kind of said that with the last post. But the fact that the University of Cambridge kind of like use this line that it might be offensive, but it's covered by free speech. I'm worried by the fact that they haven't also said it's racist, because it clearly is, and that tells me that something not quite right is going on there, if that's the case. But anyway, 58 students made formal complaints. This is the outcome. No doubt he will end up with a job teaching young minds. And we have to continue this cycle of white supremacist ideas, starting at primary schools, secondary schools, and end up in higher education. Let's look at the case of Carl Manning. Okay, I'm not going to say much on this. The name rings a bell, but the face, Carl Manning took a part in the murder of the young 8-year-old Victoria Climby. The good news is that he will not be released from prison. There's been a hearing from the parole board, and that's what they've come to. And you might be thinking, "Oh, Toyin, that's a bit mean. You don't know. Maybe he's rehabilitated. Maybe everything's okay." Well, I remember the Victoria Climby case. I don't know if you did, but in 2000, she was tortured to death by her great aunt, Mary Thea Cole, and this character here, Carl Manning. It was one of the worst cases of child abuse ever in UK history. She was 8 years old. I'm not going to go through what they did to her, but he's now in his 50s. He was eligible for parole because he had a minimum 21-year-old sentence. But there was a hearing last month, and the board made a decision not to release him from jail or to move him to an open prison. And in the summary, actually what they said was that they were not satisfied that release at this point would be safe for the protection of the public. And you know what? I am not going to question their judgment. You might say, Toyin, you talk about rule of law, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't actually. I talk about justice. Victoria Climby was starved. She was beaten with coat hangers and bicycle chains. She was bound naked and kept prisoner in a freezing bath. If I said I'm not going to go through the stuff that they did to her, what they did to her was horrendous. And she'd been seen by social workers, nurses, and doctors and police officers, but all of them failed to spot and stop the abuse. So, the fact that he's not going to be released, I'm not losing any sleep over that. I'm sorry. Okay, last story for this section. let me blow up the picture. Let's see if we can have that. No, it didn't blow up. Okay, that's a shame. I wanted you to kind of see this. This is the World Reparations Conference that took place at the House of Lords. And those of you who know that I'm interested in the issue of reparations, well, thinking, well, that's a good thing, right? Of course, it's a good thing. We're discussing these kind of things. The theme was truth, dignity, and repair for generations to come, and it was, there was politicians, international figures, scholars, descendants of those who were enslaved, and also the enslavers, and they were talking about, which I'm quite impressed, slavery and colonialism. It's not often that people are smart enough to, and I say smart enough on purpose, because there's a moral deficit going on sometimes where people don't talk about the two as if they were two separate things. They were part of the same process. And so this is good. I mean, we had our own favourite, Belle Ribeiro Addy, who was talking about the UK's perspective and its role in reparations discourse. I know that our Queen sister Esther Housey was there. Claudia Webb was there. There were discussions. There were also, descendants of enslavers there. I'm assuming, of course, that these are those who are trying to, I won't say atone, but trying to feed positively into the process and help others recognise the benefits that they still have from the Ma'afa. But the only reason why I blew up that picture is because someone made a comment which I thought was very interesting. It's about the optics of the comments. Perhaps that's the panel for the enslavers. That would probably make sense. I don't know. But when searching for information on this event, the website is kind of a bit bleak. Not many people on there. And this is what the news decided to report. Is that a good thing? Reparations debate, kind of like the face of it being non-Africans. I don't know. I mean, it kind of mirrors the worst parts of the reparation movement, where our agency has been squashed by perhaps those of us who are a bit aligned to the bourgeoisie, to the elites, and for them, reparations is kind of like a hobby as opposed to an ongoing injustice and a movement that needs to be resolved in our lifetime, which clearly doesn't look like it will be yet. But anyway, I thought I'd share that. Whew, okay, you are watching Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. If you're watching live, you're welcome to interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and of course, if you find this broadcast useful, let people know about it. Blah blah blah. Yes, I am wearing my Star Trek science officer outfit. Don't ask me why. And Sister Oleander is in the house, but technology, unfortunately, she can't join us. So I'm going to have to try and go through comments. I'm hoping you can still hear and see me as well. So please, we have a few coming in. Okay, let's just check. Our sister Pamela, so sad, such devastating news. I'm not sure. This is the problem about not having Sister Oleander, because she knows which comment refers to which story. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of sad stories, but thank you for interacting and letting us know. And that name is just as bad as Donald Trump. I don't know. My memory's gone. You'll have to give me a reminder which name you're referring to. That's a good point. Thank you for interacting as well. Anyone who's watching, listening, and wants to make a comment, please, when you make a comment, just make it a little bit fuller, because I'm flying solo today, unfortunately. And what happens is I have to look at the different screens and all over the place. But the next section, we're going to be dealing with a review of politics around the UK. And this is all the stuff that's taken place over the last couple of weeks. So let me get started on that. And okay, now that slide is in the wrong place, but I will cover it anyway. This is it's supposed to be in the health section, but just so you know, in case you wasn't. Oh, okay. Yeah, don't worry. Mental Health Act detentions are showing that disparities are based on ethnicity. So often you'll hear that when we're seeing these social injustices, these disparities, these inequalities, that it's often class and how it's based on people's work, their employment. But no, what's happened is that latest official figures from NHS England have shown that African people are more likely to be detained than other people under mental health laws. And detention rates under the Mental Health Act from 24 to 25 were high for African people. When I say African people, or Pan-Africans, people of African heritage, with detention rates amongst Europeans being virtually negligible. So the figures, for those of you who are nerdy like me who want to know, is that for us it stood at 262.4 per 100,000 people versus 65.8 per 100,000 people for people of European heritage. Also, the gap between the use of community treatment orders, which is the legislation that requires patients to comply with court order treatments for African and other people, has widened as well. So, I mean, you probably been hearing the discussions about racism, and now you're seeing the effects. Now, of course, this government is abolishing NHS England, so we won't have access to these kind of figures very soon. And this is one of the problems with this new Labour regime. But while they are still here collecting this data and doing good work, we can be aware of what it is that we need to be working on. This is going to come back, and the rise in mental health issues is going to come back. So we no longer have the luxury of treating it like a taboo in our community. This is something we have to speak out on. The next story, and it's health related. I think the last slide, or the opening slide, was the wrong one. It's one about prostate cancer. And there's been an analysis by Prostate Cancer UK who said that the NHS must change how African men are treated for prostate cancer to prevent an epidemic of unnecessary deaths, in which twice as many die as European men. Now, that last comment came from the campaigner, our brother Stafford Scott, who is a stalwart community activist, and he's made the point that prostate cancer is not colourblind. Not only is the death rate twice as high in our community, and when we look at rates compared to those of European heritage, but we're being diagnosed late, so we're also being treated late. And by coming into the system late, our chances of surviving diminishes. So he's working with the University of London and a series of experts to launch a podcast series calling for fundamental changes in the NHS approach towards prostate cancer. Some of you who've been following this program for a few years will know that one of my uncles, Errol, used to, the mechanic in Hackney, used to go around doing similar work. And we do need more and more of us engaged in raising awareness about prostate cancer. It's also it's other issues. Oh, I thought I saw something there. I thought our sister Oleander was going to join us. Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway, let me move on. That was the last one for the health section. And now we're going to deal with the dirty section, which I like to call politics. So you are watching the Galleys Pan-African Community News Update. If you're watching live, you're welcome to interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. I sound like a parrot doing this, but I kind of, I have to do this kind of stuff because I'm kind of rubbish at it. If you find the broadcast useful, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget, you can send us messages. That's a really good part of the program, because right now I'm flying solo. It feels very lonely. I don't know if I'm talking to anyone. I'm assuming you're out there. I know my cousin's out there. I know some of you are out there, but I'm hoping the signal is still live. I'm hoping you can still hear us. I'm hoping the topics are still interesting, that my mic is on. I've changed my mic and I'm using this thing. Hopefully that's clearer than usual. We'll see. We've been away for like over a year, so we're still changing up the system a little bit just to get it up to speed. But I'm going to whiz through this section because politics over the last 2 weeks has been off the hook. I can't believe it. It's been so bad. So let me start with the head honcho in the UK, and that is Nigel Farage. They are doing their best to court voters. I mean, the amount of airplay they get is, on the media is ridiculous compared to how much actual real power they have. But they're making a stake in they're planting their stake in the ground to secure political power. So Farage isn't just happy having damaged the country through Brexit. He now wants to rip up, kind of like any sense of unity, any sense of kind of a belonging, by announcing a new plan to deport hundreds of thousands of people who are living and working legally. This is a racist plan. This is literally the Windrush. It's not even a Windrush, the Home Office Windrush scheme, turbocharged. So even if you've come to this country, even if you've done everything, you paid your taxes, you've done this stupid citizen test, you've kind of given back. He's announcing that, well, if we don't like you or we think we don't need you anymore, we'll deport you. And, this plan to get rid of people who've been granted indefinite leave to remain would put the future of so many thousands of people, people who, people, our neighbors, our relatives now, people who are friends and colleagues. This is a real threat. I don't see Nigel as a real threat. The idea, I hate this boogeyman thing. Oh, you must support Labour, you mustn't support anyone else, or Reform will get in and Nigel will be PM. It makes no difference whether it's Starmer or Farage. And I know people disagree with me. If you're someone from the minority community, it makes no difference. They've got the orange one in the White House. It's the same problem. It makes no difference. That it just do they stab us in the front, in the face, or do they stab us in the back? That's a slight difference between the two of them. But this is who Farage is, and this is his policy. The good thing is that his plan is not only unworkable. He would destroy businesses. He would, taking away benefits from people who can legally live here. All this kind of thing is happening. It just makes no sense. But the fear that it generates and the turmoil is something we had to watch out for. Other politics that we had to look out for. Oh God, Kemi. So Kemi Badenoch, so desperate for media attention, so desperate to prove herself relevant, has gone full on racist mode. And she's now declared that if the Tories, the Conservatives, win an election and they come into power, then what they're going to do is have a serious plan to protect our borders and drag the country out of the European Court or the European Convention on Human Rights. And it's the same thing as Reform. It's almost exactly the same. Now, because it is the same as Reform, this whole idea that human rights are bad, right? Protecting vulnerable people is bad, right? It's like taking protections, workers' rights from the most vulnerable society, is a good thing to do because they have this mindset. But that's not enough. Kemi, she's decided that, you know what? I really like what the Orange One is doing in America. The whole turmoil that's happening with ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency that's in America, grabbing people from Latino people, people off the streets and deporting them. So she said that the Conservatives would create a new removals force. That's what they're going to call them, the RF, removals force. It could be modeled on ICE. And they're going to deport 150,000 people a year. She even went as far as putting a number on it. Every single year, they'll look at someone that you look a bit twitchy, removal force, get rid of them, and then off they go. They won't have the human rights because we're no longer under the Human Convention of Human Rights. This is her plan. This is coming from an African woman. It's enough to make you throw up. I wish I was joking. I wish I could say it was April the 1st, but I'm not. This is the policy of the opposition, of the government. This is the major party, the most successful political party in the history of Europe, the Conservative Party. This is their plan. Perhaps this is why they are in the wilderness. I just wish somebody would put them out of their misery and we'd have some grown-up politics. But hey, the next story is I was speaking about earlier on about a champion of our community, the people's champion. I invoked the name of the ancestor Bernie Grant. Well, the person who inherited his mantle was this character called David Lammy. David Lammy's come a long way since then, since the people of Tottenham have kind of seen him for what he is since, and he's now the Deputy Prime Minister. But what's really interesting, and this is going to make me cringe inside, because I had to defend him now, so I am cringing inside, was that after that horrific stabbing and shooting that took place in Manchester at the synagogue, it was the police that killed the person, unfortunately, but the attack was obviously anti-Semitic, and I don't even skirt around from saying that. He, with the Prime Minister and their entourage, rushed towards Manchester to a vigil to speak to the victims, to the community, which was, it's a good thing to do. No, nothing wrong with that. I mean, of course, there's comparisons that they don't do it for us, but that was a good thing to do. And while he was talking, he was heckled. Shame on you! This is, you've encouraged this, you've emboldened this. And of course, I mean, his normal response, to this kind of stuff, is like, well, this is grown, stop that grown-up politics. What's it? We are now a party. What's that phrase? I even Starmer used the other day. We're a party of power, not of protest anymore. Blah blah blah. But they were really rude. They were really dismissive at a time of mourning. And of course, they are feeling traumatized. And of course, how they express their trauma, I'm never going to challenge that. But what I can't help but think, because Lammy is now also Justice Secretary, and he has been criticized for the government's decision to recognize Palestine as a state. Of course, the UK government and Lammy and Starmer are also deeply complicit in the genocide that Israel is committing against Palestinians right now. And I say deeply committed, but what they were challenging him on this and stuff like that. And I'm not sure whether they would have done that to him if he was not African. I'm not sure. I was having this conversation with a friend, and he raised that point, and I didn't see it from that perspective until he said it. And something ugly is happening. I mean, it's not happening. It has been happening. I'm not a fan of Lammy. No, I've never hidden that. But the fact that he's at a vigil and the attack he got, we have to be mindful now that even allies of white supremacy are facing public threats. I'm going to leave that there. I will say, just in case you don't know, that there was a mosque in East Sussex yesterday. I don't know, it was yesterday or this morning, that was set on fire by two masked men. Now, the police have made it clear they're treating it as a hate crime. Thankfully, the two people inside the mosque managed to escape unharmed. Silence. Nothing, not heard anything about it, right? And this is kind of, remember we were talking about our elder Diane Abbott talking about, kind of like this hierarchy, talking about how some hate crimes are seen as of less value. Prime Minister didn't go there. Of course, there's no loss of life in that particular case. But the fact that the media are not even reporting on these kind of things, there's something strange cooking at this moment in time, and it's getting worse. So I'm going to leave that there because, of course, that's the sort of thing that gets people upset with me and stuff like that. Got to talk it. Saying I've got to talk it. Soon I won't be able to talk it. Soon I'll be in prison for doing this program. This kind of stuff will be illegal under a Labour government. And I say that because Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood this morning announced on one of those BBC programs that the police are going to be granted powers to put conditions on repeat protests. Now, you might be thinking, run that by me again. So if you have a protest and you repeat that protest, maybe you do it every month or every week or every year, whatever it is, we don't know yet, the police will be granted powers to say, no, you can't, or you can't have those numbers, or you can't do it on this day, or if you do, you're going to be arrested. And they're going to rush through this legislation. That's what she said. She's going to put it through at speed. Now, my worry about this is, I think about one of our annual rituals, which one of the ones that really helped and kind of like put reparations on the international map was our reparations march that took place in August. The idea that by repeating it can be abolished or is scary. This is obviously being done because yesterday the police arrested nearly 500 protesters again for carrying signs in which they accused them of supporting a prescribed terrorist group. Now, of course, we know that group has been prescribed for political reasons, but that's what they were doing. So they were arresting pensioners, blind people, people in wheelchairs. And the argument that came because of the attack that took place in Manchester was that all marches, any campaign in support of Palestinians, and anything to do with Gaza, should have been cancelled in solidarity with the Jewish community. And one of the things I had to give so much love and respect to some of those Jewish stalwarts who came out was saying, actually, no, you don't need to do that. You can show sympathy to me and my family and my community, and saying that anti-Semitism is obviously something that should be stamped out, and that we want to be there for you at your time of pain and crisis after this violence occurred. But at the same time, we are not in support of Zionist policies where a nation state is murdering. I think the number's at 60,000 people. People talk about the children being killed, of course, because that's the most emotive language. I don't need to do that. It's not just children. It's also women. It's also men. All those lives have value. And so you can do both at the same time. So that's where this is coming from. And, and I find it quite sickening that she is, and a few other politicians and media pundits are jumping on the loss of life after the Manchester attack to actually push back and attack pro-Palestinian protesters. In fact, the fact that this has been supported by the Police Federation. I saw a tweet by Sanjita Maiska, amazing, like a journalist or radio pundit. She used to be on that toxic channel LBC. She was a breath of fresh air, and they got rid of her because, of course, she was an ethical person. But she makes a comment that the rank and file, which is the Police Federation, are saying that they back it. They back this awful policy. So I think we need to watch this very, very carefully, because if the police not only can determine when you protest, what day you protest, because you've got to get permission, tell you how many stewards you've got to have, make sure you have insurance. But now they're saying how many times you can protest. This sounds like we're moving towards licensing of protest, where activists have to not just ask permission, but they have to be the right kind of person to have a protest. And in that protest has to have like a plan submitted, which says we will protest 4 times over the next 10 years. And we're just checking with you that these dates are available. That is not civil disobedience. That's not what protest. That's not freedom. That's tyranny from a Labour government. And so, like, this whole thing, if you sense a bit of scorn when I'm talking about Lammy, even though I'm defending him, it's because the people like Lammy, people like Kemi Badnoch, and people like Shabana Mahmood and her predecessors, Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, and we have loads and loads of them. These people, they have made it acceptable for mainstream parties to carry out acts of extreme racism, extreme aggression against political activists who are fighting for ethical causes in a way that European politicians wouldn't dare, because the racism would be so transparent. So yeah, sorry I went on a bit long about that one, but no one's talking about it as far as I know. It's the implications of it in the long term. And the last politics story is probably tied to the last one. It's a little bit of a warning. And our sister Dawn Butler, she's a good one, and she has come out and said, look, the party I'm a part of, the Labour Party, is taking too long to address the racism that's coming from parties like Farage, like the Reform, like Badenoch. I mean, I say that in the same week there was a Labour conference, and I don't know if you know that when Starmer was asked whether Farage was racist, no, Farage isn't racist, nor are Reform Party voters racist. They're just concerned about things like, borders. They're just frustrated about the pace of change. This is his comment. And this kind of mealy-mouthed statement where he's actually giving cover to racism is problematic. And Dawn, and please have her back, because I know when people like Dawn, when people like Bell, and we saw what happened to Diane. When people say something, I think Clive Lewis is actually standing up, and he's always been doing this now. He's standing firm, and people come up and say these things. Starmer gets his little boys, and he start targeting them, and then start taking away their powers and stripping them down, and then kick them out of the party. So have her back, because she said, I think it's taken too long to kick back against the racism. And if you take what President Trump said, for instance, we should have come out straight away challenging this. And what she's talking about is Trump came over here because he was being appeased by the establishment, and then he made an attack on Sadiq Khan. Now, I don't get on with Sadiq because of what he did to me. Most of you will be familiar with that, okay? But I think the accusation against him are racist. The targeting him because he's a Muslim are Islamophobic. And I think that the most thing I've heard from Starmer about Trump's racism and his Islamophobic behavior is, hold on, Trump. The mayor's a friend of mine. That's it. And some people say, well, it's grown-up politics. We've got to preserve the special relationship. Do you think he gives a damn about a special relationship? I can't take out of my mind that scene where Trump dropped his papers on the floor and the Starmer boy bent down, picking him up like a little buffoon. Dawn is right. And if Starmer wants to reverse the fact that he's now polling as the least popular prime minister in British history, and that's something, the least. I mean, do you remember Spitting Image, when they had that one who was grey? What was his name? John Major. He had no colour, grey, completely devoid of personality and character. He's worse than him, right? Then he's going to have to get some kind of I don't know, a transplant, a soul transplant. It's not even a spine. It's not a physical change that can fix this. It's something that is fundamental to what it means to be human. Because this guy comes over like a ChatGTP kind of like. In fact, ChatGTP would be actually. Oh my God, that's so true. ChatGTP would make more comments against racism than we hear from the Prime Minister. And ChatGPT is not alive. It's not sentient. It's not intelligent. That's scary when a piece of technology would do a better job than the actual Prime Minister of the UK. Let me leave that there. You are watching the Pan-African Community News Update. My name is Dr. Toyin Agbetu. You're welcome to interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you find this broadcast useful. Apologies for not going through the chats. I've got some comments here. Sister Oleander's in the house, but she can't get online, unfortunately. So I'm flying solo. What do we have? What do we have here? We have a comment from our sister Natalie. Wings of the same bird, politics. Yes, I think our sister is referring to Labour, Reform, Tory. If the three one, they're the same. I should perhaps be a bit more what's that? Not characteristic, a bit more charitable. That's the word, and remind us that the Green Party is actually had some kind of spine, right? It's coming out and making some positive comments. And what's his name? Zach something. Positive sounds and noise. I'm more sympathetic to the Green Party. It's different from them. Do I think they're going to be in power? No, I don't. But do I think that it's good to have that voice there? Yes, it is. God, if we had the time, we'd talk about what was it? Your party for debacle. The one with no, in fact, I won't, because that is the most disheartening meltdown and disappointment I've seen in left wing. That's why I don't call myself left wing. I'm left leaning, but I'm not left wing, because sometimes they're just full of it. But yeah, let's see what else. So thank you, Sister Natalie. Toyin, your broadcast is currently being interrupted. Oh. Okay. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to, okay, I'll keep going. I'll have to. Okay, what I'll do, I'll keep broadcasting. At least you can hear me and you can see me. But if it's been interrupted, I won't be able to check that until I finish. And hopefully the recording should be on YouTube and Facebook, so you can actually see the video. But please bear with me. Thank you for these kind of updates. And when it happens, if it happens for too long, let me know. Because we've had some bizarre technical issues today. I'm a bit, I'm always suspect of these kind of things. Like Sister Oleander's here, but she just can't get on. But I don't want to go down that spiral in my head, because I think I explained that to you before. Yeah, let's hopefully it's settled down. Okay. I've just seen the message. It was breaking up earlier. Apologies, I deleted the message. No, don't apologize. These kind of technical issues we need to know, because we've been away for over a year. I'm experimenting, new system. I even want to have phone-ins as well. I don't know how we're going to do that one, but that's something I'm trying to, work on, so that not only can you communicate through chat, but if you want to just get on the line, you can come in, have a chat. But that's obviously needs a lot more managing and stuff like that. So updates are fantastic, very helpful, and we very much appreciate it. And yeah, John Major, I think I see the message there as well. Yes, the grey one, John Major. They used to crack me up. Okay, so the next section is world news. It's a bit shorter, so let me move on with that. And the first story is this one, where Kenyans have proven paternity case against UK soldiers. Now, those of you who are familiar with us for the last couple of years know that we have an invested interest. The reason why I don't get on with Keir Starmer, I'm not going to go over the whole thing again, because Legali was involved in trying to prosecute British soldiers for their abuse and rape and murder of Africans in Kenya, and he blocked our investigation. And but you can probably find out about more of that in one of the older programs. But they have continued, the people in Kenya have continued to pursue this. There are different legal, chambers dealing with this. I think it's Lay Day that does a bulk of the cases. But in this particular case, this story tells us about 7 people from Kenya who have won a case at the family court to prove they were fathered by British men who are working at an army base in the country. Now, of course, this when I say fathered, this isn't consensual, right? I mean, there might have been 1 or 2, I don't know, but they're not all consensual. Let's be really specifically clear about that. But what has happened is that commercially available DNA bases have been used to identify otherwise unknown soldiers, and 6 of them served at the British Army Training Unit. And that's the one in Kenya. One of them worked as a contractor. So this is irrefutable now. It's the first time ever that paternity has been proven this way in a UK court. So it's a real milestone. And, we're waiting to see what happens. I mean, there are implications, because, of course, the children, therefore, can claim British citizenship, which would be kind of like problematic for people like Starmer, who parrots whatever Farage and Reform say, or what the Tories say. But the issue of justice has not been done. And when I'm talking about justice, also, I don't have the image here now. I just want to remind you, in the last programme, that there is still a warrant out for Robert James Purkis, who is the former combat medic and infantryman who faces extradition to Kenya to face trial for the alleged murder of Agnes Wanjiru. Now, she's a 21-year-old mother who was killed in 2012. We've covered that case quite extensively. So there's a lot of things going on in Kenya, and we are not taking our eyes off justice. So, I mean, let's talk about the rule of law, because we've seen how that's been sidestepped with the genocide in Palestine, the lack of interest in the conflict and the internally displaced people in Congo and Sudan, let alone across other parts of the world. Even the focus on what's taking place in oh my God, my brain's gone. In oh my God, it's gone. Ukraine is being muted. Ideas of rule of law are very temporal at this particular moment, but justice is something we should never take our eye off. On the topic of justice, this is a really interesting story. Now, you may have seen it blow up on social media, and it's got a bit confusing. So I had to do a bit of digging to get to the truth of the story. Now, most headlines are saying that Colin Kaepernick, and I spoke about him earlier, the brother who lost his job for the NFL as a quarterback for taking a knee. Now, the story that's going around was that he funded an inquest or an independent autopsy into the loss of life of the Martrafian Trey Reed. Now, he's the young 21-year-old student who was found hanging from a tree in the Mississippi college campus. Now, what's the truth on this? Okay, well, yes. There's no doubt. I'm going to refer to him as Trey. That was his nickname. The Martrafian Reed, Trey, was found hanging from this tree, from this campus. It was ruled, the official ruling is that of death by suicide. The police said that no foul play was suspected. They hinted that they had a video, but they've never shown this. So there's been this kind of like, he didn't. Now, the family don't quite believe that official account. And so what happened is that there's an organization called Know Your Rights. And this is, I'll explain why I'm being pedantic about this. Know Your Rights Camp is the full name of the organization, arranged for an independent autopsy. And that organization was co-founded and funded by not only Colin Kaepernick, but also his wife, who's a television radio host called Nessa Diab. And they did that in 2015. And so they've done an investigation. And now there is growing speculation around, there's evidence emerging that he was killed, and there's evidence of what they call it, blunt force trauma. And so this, I couldn't find anything to confirm it, but it looks like, and like I said, this is speculation, that it looks like Trey was hit with something. So he was killed, and then he was hanged up. That's the speculation. But what we know is that this independent autopsy was carried out by Know Your Rights Camp. And the reason why I've decided to be so pedantic about this, because I was frustrated with the way it's been framed, is that the way the media frames it, it linchpins on the cult of celebrity. So they kind of make it out like this individual, this NFL quarterback, kind of like was so moved, the Rosa Parks nonsense, the one person, wasn't an organization, was so moved that he funded it. And that's not the case. What's happened is that this organization has been running since 2015. And we need to remember that there are African people all over the world, all over the diaspora and the continent, who are organized, who set up organizations to deal with these kind of issues. And we don't hear about them, often because the media doesn't want us to hear about them. This is called Know Your Rights Camp, right? And it was that organization that supported the family in doing this, this independent autopsy. So I'm hopeful that we'll find out more, because this has got kind of echoes of Emmett Till. When I'm hearing this, that's what's coming to mind, right? But we don't know. But the good thing is that we have organizations, and we have awareness of organizations that are doing this kind of work, that are supported by some of the major personalities in our community. Because we don't hear anything about Jay-Z from Jay-Z. We don't hear anything from Beyonce. There are others We hear about the misdeeds of people like Puff Daddy or whatever he calls himself this week, right? He's going to jail now. Is it for 4 years? We hear about all that. We don't hear about those other ones, the good ones who are doing the work, who are setting up these institutions that will live even when they become ancestors. And we have to remember that. So Trey, I hope we can get justice for you. I hope we can get to the bottom of what took place. It's in Mississippi. You're on a tree. You're on a rope. It sounds dodgy. And if the speculation, if these rumors are true, that there's evidence of blunt force trauma to your head and you were murdered, then we really need to hold the police to account. We really need to find out what the truth of this matter is. And I say this is just the section dealing with world news, because this is not just unique to the Americas. This is unique. This is a situation that occurs to us as African people wherever we find ourselves on this planet. This cover-up. I'm going to go to the next story. And, this is a good story. I don't have much information about it other than I know that a South African court has reopened the inquest into the death of our beloved anti-apartheid leader and our ancestor, Steve Biko. He was supposed to have died from brain injuries in police custody 48 years ago. The case shocked the world, and it contributed to the pressure that ended white supremacy, what they call minority rule, in Azania. But this move to reopen this inquest has been supported by legal representatives of the Biko family, and it really is trying to find out if his death involved any criminal act. So I don't know much more from it. All I know is that Biko was the founder of the Black Consciousness Movement, and his death in custody, 12th of September 1977, it's around 48 years ago, allegedly due to torture by the members of this apartheid regime special branch, has never really been satisfactorily examined in a way that we can have confidence in what we think we know happened. So the fact that we're looking, what they call in cold cases, the fact we have technology, we have a growing mass, critical mass of Africans across the world who are saying, we're not accepting your word as gospel anymore. We don't believe that your account of history is factual. So we are going to do the work. Like they used a DNA bank to find in Kenya that the European soldiers who said that they weren't there were the fathers. We're going to use technology. We're going to use our resources. We're going to set up our organizations. So this is, perhaps this is positive news. Perhaps that's where it should have been, but it's world news as well. And I can't stress to everyone, if there are situations where you've had that niggling thing in your head that this ain't right. I know this ain't right. Everything, my spirit is telling me this ain't right. But what's the point? Might as well let it go. No, don't let it go. Satisfy that itch, scratch that itch, and just double check. Because often when the ancestors are talking to you and they're tapping on your shoulder and say, don't let it go, don't let it go, don't let it go. There's a reason. Okay, you're watching, listening to Big Mouth Toyin on the Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. This is the last part of the program, being positive. Apologies for all the gremlins. We still don't seem to manage to get this programming onto an hour or hour and a half, which was the objective. I'm going to try and go for an hour and a half next week. But this is the last section, being positive. If you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, you're welcome to interact with us. Please do, actually. It's the last part of the program. Sorry that I haven't been able to monitor the chats. We'll try and get that fixed by 2 weeks' time when we come back. It's quite challenging, but as you can imagine, this is kind of like a service that we provide. We're not a massive organization. Again, it's just a few of us doing this work. If you like what you're hearing, if it's useful, then subscribe. You can like it. Yeah, you can send the broadcast, send a link, put it in your WhatsApp groups, tell people to join in, to share it, whatever. This is information that we should all know, right? This is something that we should all be aware of. But that's a lot of heavy stuff I've been talking about. So this closing section looks at some of the more positive news relating to our community over the past 2 weeks. So let me start with a story that's come out of a crisis, actually, in many ways. So there's a new organisation called Ebony Bonds Bereavement Support, and it's a collective group. It was formed after Rachel Burrell and Gina Reeves kind of like experienced lost their babies to stillbirth, and they felt unsupported and not listened to at the hospitals and by other care providers. We've heard a lot about maternity deaths faced by African women in the UK. And so because they were unable to find the specific tailored resources and support for them within conventional charities, what do? They set up their own organisation. And it was started off very small. They just thought it'd be a small gathering, a few people, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And I just want to say, we salute you, we celebrate you, we thank you. This is how it always begins, right? This is how institutions start to be built. It came from their loss, and I'm really sorry for your loss, and your family, and I know that pain personally as well. But you're turning that energy into something positive to help others, and that's a beautiful thing. And we must never lose sight of the fact that there are those of us within our community that continuously do these beautiful things. And every single one of us, that's including all of you there, out there watching, listening, reading, whatever it is, how you're interacting with this broadcast, you're all contributing, and you can contribute in a small way. And sometimes, they just had a small gathering, just meeting one or two people and sitting down and researching or chatting, or deciding just to give help to an elder, or whatever it is, or mentoring a young person. These little acts, these charitable acts, make a difference. What's that phrase that Oleander? Every mickle make a mockle? Oh, I wish she was here, man. I think it's every mickle make a mockle. It's something like that. I know you've saved what's the British version? Save the pennies and the pounds will come. That kind of foolishness. It's true. It's true. Let me go to the next story. And this is, again, out of adversity. Now, it's really odd because even though one of my role models is Muhammad Ali, and I grew up learning what it meant to be a man watching him. I know he wasn't perfect, but he was an inspiration to me. I was never a great fan of boxing, even though I loved the Rocky films. Contradictions. All of us are full of contradictions, right? There was something about punching people in the head for a living doesn't do it. Yeah, I've got I play with VR and Full of the Fight. Oh my god, I play it and so contradiction. But I don't like the sport, even though I appreciate that it is a sport. And I don't even remember Michael Watson, the boxing legend, our elder. He spent 40 days in a coma. 40 days in 1991 after multiple brain operations in a near fatal fight with Chris Eubank Sr. That's the days when boxing, it still is a big thing, but it was a really big thing. I remember that. I remember the headlines. I remember how I felt. It was sickening. As much as it's a sport, and I acknowledge that, this is the reason why I don't really support it. And since then, he's gone through a lot. But he's back. He's trying to live his life. He's doing his thing. And I'm not a great fan of institutions like the City of London. These are institutions that are complicit in enslavement of our ancestors, in the extraction of resources during colonialism. But I do appreciate it when they make these little efforts, and they've given him the freedom of the City of London as a way to make him feel welcome, and I appreciate that. He's thankful for it, and he deserves it. And you find that quote he said. He said, "The doctors saying I should be bedbound. It's a miracle I'm still alive up to this day. I've been on a very dark journey. I was carjacked, and I thank God that I'm alive. It's a privilege to be playing the role I am now, inspiring people. Everywhere I go, I'm inspiring the next generation. I love to be who I am, the people's champion. I'm here to help disabled people that have mental health problems in life. I am just here to inspire everybody in life. It's an honor and a privilege to play the role I'm playing." And that's why I can't have anything but good words for this story, because he's come back and he's helping those that need the help, and he's inspiring those that need the help. Right? Look, this week we've spoken about mental health. He's talking about disabled. This week I've been dealing with personal issues, with our family with disability. It's been very stressful this week for us, and to know that someone's gone through this and they still have something to give back to others, that's inspiring. And so, even though I'd rather it was the CEO or the Continent of Africa award, that our nations came together, freedom of flight to the Caribbean. So, God, what I wouldn't give to be able to go fly, just kind of like, even if I could just stay there for the weekend and come back, the spiritual healing. But this is a good story. And so we thank you and we see you. Michael Watson. And almost, I think we've got 2 more stories, yes, before we close. I'm a nerd. Yes, it is a Kirk, not a Kirk. It is a Spock science officer, Star Trek top I'm wearing. I'll be back to my usual. Please forgive me, but it's been a tough week, and I just getting everything ready. I just didn't get a chance to change. And Sundays is my Colombo day, and I wanted. You know what? I haven't been to a convention, a Star Trek convention, for like maybe 5 years, and I saw it, and I thought this morning, what's the point of having something that brings you joy and laughter and fun, and you just only wear it once every 5 years? It's madness. So I just put it on, and I just didn't take it off in time for the program. But it's the same thing, like, for you as well. If you've got something out there in your house that you enjoy and you just don't use it, just try it, even if it's for a couple of minutes. I thought I was going to wear it for a couple of minutes and take it off. Next week I'll probably be in a Mac. I'll get a Colombo Mac. No, I won't. I'll be dressed appropriately. But this story is another good story, and the reason why I went through that is because it's one of my nerdy things as well. There's a story about the headline, "This is Strength," and this is really the story of enslaved Africans in Grenada. And I say it's their story, but it's a story that's been enabled and made possible by our brother Stephen Lewis. Okay, this is his heritage. He's from Grenada, and he's made a searchable archive. And then, some people will be like, a searchable archive, what the hell are they talking about, searchable archive? Why is this in the positive news? What's that's got to do? That's kind of your nerd stuff, Toyin. Come on, give me some more blood and guts and trauma and stuff. No, this is the good news story. Because what our brother did was that he decided that, look, I love the work that University College London, that's my university, UCL, has done on the British slavery database. And I blow my trumpet. A few of us were involved in that, and the work that was done was amazing. And I'm proud to have supported the team behind that. But there were gaps in that database. This gap, which is enabling us to find those who benefited from the enslavement of our people, there were gaps. And so our brother, who had retired from his job in the pharmaceutical industry, what he did, he dedicated his time to fill in those gaps. He spent his energy and he pulled together a resource. He's decided to look at Grenada, and that's fine. And he's created this archive, which means that we can track over the criminals, the enslavers, and it's been helped as well by a descendant of an enslaver. And I give thanks for that as well. I want to be really clear about that. I really sincerely give thanks to those who recognize that in their history and help. That it's beautiful that you do that. But it's also going to help those of us to find out our own family roots and backgrounds. And that's equally just as amazing. The fact that that's what this work will lead to. So, yeah, thank you. This is positive news. This is great stories. I could talk about the issue of enslavement, but you know this. Let's talk about the people who are making efforts to actually find justice for us, not just dealing with the criminal justice aspect, but the social justice, so we can connect back to our families and go through our family trees and find out who we are. So the database is called Depths of Paradise. I think you can access it online. And he's done Grenada. It doesn't stop anyone else doing other parts of the world. Right? We should have these databases in every single location on this planet where African people were kidnapped and exploited. that's on all of us. It just takes one person in each of these spaces to actually do that work. So yeah, give thanks. Okay, and I think my memory serves me correctly. Oh, it didn't change. Okay. Well, actually, we had technical issues on the last slide. Yes. Okay. Black History Month, Luxembourg, 2025. Now, those of you who are thinking, Toyin, you said Black History Month. You don't use racializing language. It's true. I normally say African History Month, but today I'm going to say Black History Month. Why am I going to say Black History Month? Well, because this time last week, my queen and I, Sister Oleander and I, we were in Luxembourg. And I could go on about, it's my first time in Luxembourg. And I could talk about how it was fascinating just jumping on trains and buses and not paying. You feel like it's weird, right? Because, I don't even know in Luxembourg, public transport is free. That's what you do in London. That's what you do in the UK. But in Luxembourg, it is. You just jump on a train. They run really well. Jump on the buses. It's free. And we was there. But I was invited to take part in, I think it's the 3rd edition of this amazing African History Month event. I mean, they still call it Black History Month. And of course, hopefully in time, that will change. But it doesn't matter because it was powerful. It was beautiful. It was an intergenerational event. There were young people. There were elders. They had translators for me because they were speaking in French and different languages. So they had translators there. So I had the headphones on so I could hear what the audience was saying. But from start to finish, it touched and involved the hearts of everyone who was present. There was an opening with an amazing performance, capoeira performance. The martial arts where you dance and you move around, but you actually still fight. It blew my mind, right? What's that film that came out? The one with the Busuru, I think it was. If you don't know much about capoeira, it's not just Eddie inside Street Fighter. It's it's a spiritual martial art. Which there was talks on history, African history art. There were traditional music performances. Kind of like using the kora, using the drum. There was some political poetry. Initially he was talking a different language, so I felt, oh my God, they couldn't translate it. It was too fast, it was too powerful. I needed bits in English and stuff like that. It was amazing. Some amazing griots. And it reminded me of how things used to be kind of like in the 80s, and then when Legali started in the 2000s, when we had this strong community, it was that stage, right? Can you imagine? It's 2025 and it's the 3rd ever Black History event in Luxembourg. I mean, so you kind of like, in one level, it's like a time warp because why isn't it there? Why hasn't it been there? And there's another side. It's here now. It's got this intergenerational vibe, which is transcending work, which has happened because in London, a lot of these events are a certain generation, right? They can't attract the young people. And you can see that this is going to go from strength to strength and get better and better because African people in Luxembourg are under it. When I say they're under it, they are under it. Luxembourg, for all it's got some amazing benefits, right? Lowest poverty rates, social care is amazing. The amount of people living on the breadline is really low. But of those people who are on the breadline, the majority of them are African. And so when the violence happens, when the police brutality happens, it's happening to Africans. And so there was a need for someone to come out and celebrate our history and remind us of who we are and why we're special and why we must keep rising. And that wonderful person was Sister Madeleine Nuguet. And I want to thank her for inviting me, and especially all those who were present, who made my first attendance to this historic event such a welcoming and inspirational occasion. I mean, I don't particularly like using Ryanair. I normally take like Eurotunnel, and this time I had to take Ryanair, and I still don't like using Ryanair after that. But I will do it again. I would attend this event, and we need to bring this back because it reminds me of the work that was being done by the BTWSC behind, beyond the Will Smith Challenge, the Black Music Congress, when they were doing intergenerational things at the Mission Dying Club. It reminds me of some of the early works of the Al-Qaeda movement. There was so many. I mean, up in Manchester, in Bristol, in Wolverhampton, there was so many organisations. the John Lynch Project. I mean, just doing this amazing work. And now it's like the spirit's been broken. The incessant rise of social media, of Facebook and Instagram, all these things means that, we are all scattered all over the place and we're not doing it. But here in Luxembourg, just tasting that again, it gave you hope. It gave you that feeling of who we are and what we are and why it's important. And we place the stamp. We're here now and we ain't going anywhere. No matter what policies that Tories come up with, no matter what policies reform come up, we ain't going nowhere. We go where we want to go when we want to go. So, that's the last story for this week. Phew. Thank you for being with me. As ever, I want to give thanks to Sister Angie and Brother Colin for their research and all the others who sent stories in. But these slides couldn't be done without their work. Throughout the week, I'm everywhere. I mean, I'm teaching. It's a new academic term, so anyone who knows what that means will know that my capacity is only dwindling. So I thank everyone for your contribution. I thank you for being here with us. This means nothing without you, right? This is for me an archive. I'm hoping that when we are ancestors, that it's a gift we've parted, that others can remember how I felt when I went to Luxembourg, and that they can learn from this and not make the same mistakes, and remember those of us who are passing. The most important part of this isn't just the news. It's also it's the remember and the positive news. The news things, this is going to come and go, but we must remember those who helped us, and we must always stay positive and focus and shape the future. I always say, if you can, try and get involved if you can, whether it's in your family, whether it's at your workplace, whether you join an organization, join a collective, form an organization. I would hope it's a Pan-African organization, but it doesn't have to be. Just do something, even if it's just sharing this with others. Do something, help, keep that positivity going. And don't forget to support the many community journalists and presenters doing their best, despite the pressures they're facing in the mainstream media. I say there are many there, but a lot of them are unemployed now. The same way that we're losing voices in academic spaces. So I heard that the Goldsmith program, I think we spoke about the Goldsmith program, has been shut down in African history. We know that the doctoral program with Professor Hakim Madi in Chichester was closed down. They're shutting down all our sources, getting information. Even the primary school books are being shut down. So we have to support those that are doing the work. And our sister, who I was talking about last week, Melissa Sigoda, her newsletter is called The Source. And I know that because I put a Post-it note on the screen so I wouldn't forget. It's The Source. If you've got a little bit of loose change and you can subscribe to it, she does work as well or compiling this information. Ours is Pan-African focused. She looks at it, including us. It's a bit wider, but it's amazing work. And there's others, Nadine White as well, who does work. This is why I spoke about Sanjita, but there's also Henry Bonsu, there's Sine Flery. I mean, support them. I'm hoping that I'll be able to go to some events. I bought my ticket for Memorial 2007 this year. I really wanted to hear the guest speaker. Unfortunately, work got in the way, so I couldn't go. So there are still some amazing events taking place. I still see emails coming in from Brother Tony Warner. So if you don't want to deal with the politics, you want respite, and you want something that's going to lift you, so it's still political, but it's also spiritual, and it's going to lift you, don't forget to check things like history walks. Check them out. But on that note, I'm going to say, Sister Oleander, give a little wave. She is here. Just in case you've been thinking that I'm hallucinating, she is actually in the house, but we had a technology issue. So, and we also had a tough week. I haven't said no, my queen. Our son had some serious crisis. We had sickle cell. Say over there, honey.
I forget.
Yeah, I know. But
greetings, everybody.
She's in the house. We'll try and make sure that the system's working better, because I know I'm awful monitoring the chat and stuff like that. But whatever you do, be careful. The next broadcast is on Sunday, the 19th at 6 p.m. I hope this time has worked. I hope it means that you've come straight from Lib Radio and straight here. This is a bit late for us because it means dinner's later and everything's later and stuff like that. But hopefully it's working. We'll give it a shot, and then we might try 4 o'clock. But 4 in the afternoon is right in the middle of Colombo time, and I need just give me a couple of hours of like just foolishness, please. It's either Colombo or Star Trek. I need a little bit of foolishness for a couple of hours on a Sunday before I get into the heavy work. So whatever you're doing, please be careful, be safe, be loving, look after yourself, and may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us.
Ashe.
Ashe. That's awkward. It's still going. Bye.